A federal judge just excoriated the Trump DOJ during an appearance where this judge said, why the hell, essentially, is Lindsey Halligan, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, still calling herself that when we fired her? She's done. She's gone. She's no longer the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. So get her off the pleadings. Stop pretending that she's the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And we want to understand why, after she was disqualified by a prior judge, Judge Curry, in the Comey case, why is she still showing up in our records and representing that she's this United States Attorney? And this was directed at an assistant United States attorney, basically a line prosecutor, the day-to-day prosecutors who are doing their work for the Eastern District of Virginia Federal Prosecutor's Office. And they said, we're being forced to do it. Judge, we're being told by the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel to keep her name on. She's our boss, so we don't really have an option or say in this, to which this federal judge, Judge Brinkema, says, well, don't you think that after all of these rulings we've seen across the country, whether it's the Third Circuit Court of Appeal saying Alina Habba needs to go because she was disqualified, you're just going to have a fake pretending United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia who should never have been there in the first place? Don't you think that's going to taint all of your other cases? Now, in response to this, we've been seeing statements, official statements from the Department of Justice that are some of the weirdest things I've ever read, like this statement right here from Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Certain district court and magistrate judges in the Eastern District of Virginia are engaging in an unconscionable campaign of bias and hostility against United States Attorney Lindsey Halligan and her line AUSAs. In other words, the judges are picking on us. The federal judges are going after us. Lindsey and our attorneys are simply doing their jobs, advocating for the Department of Justice's position while following guidance from the Office of Legal Counsel. They do not deserve to have their reputations questioned in court for ethically advocating on behalf of their client. This Department of Justice has no tolerance for undemocratic judicial activism. We will continue fighting for public safety in courtrooms across the country, and we will not be deterred by rogue judges who fail to live up to their obligations of impartiality because of their own political views. The American people and the people of the Eastern District of Virginia deserve nothing less. No, the nothing less, the less here is Lindsey Halligan, who was never a federal prosecutor before, never even interned for the office, has zero experience, was put there purely for Donald Trump to be able to prosecute James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. They screwed that up. She was there in a grand jury all by herself, and she ended up having a fake second indictment that the grand jury didn't even review. They tried to pass that off as the actual indictment for Comey. We learned that she didn't even know the legal instructions or provided false legal instructions to the grand jury. She put up a witness, this FBI agent, who was not allowed to testify in the first place because he was exposed to attorney-client privilege. And then we didn't even get to those issues because Lindsey Halligan was disqualified from the outset. This isn't about partisan politics or anything other than the United States Constitution, which says that these types of officers, like the United States attorneys from the various districts, need to be appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. There's an accompanying statute that was passed that says, look, we get that sometimes the Senate confirmation process can take a little bit of time, so we'll allow the president to put someone in place of the United States attorney on an interim basis for 120 days, but you only get to do that once. That 120-day term can be extended by a vote of the district court judges, who are comprised of judges appointed from all political parties and prior presidents. That term can be extended, but if it's not extended, that person needs to go as the United States attorney, and you only get to do this once. So in the Eastern District of Virginia, for example, the Trump regime picked a guy, Siebert, who was a Republican, a Trump interim, and this guy was going to get confirmed. The Senate said they were ready to confirm him, but Trump didn't want this guy confirmed because the guy was not willing to prosecute James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James because he didn't see the evidence there. He said it would be a frivolous case, so he said, I can't do that. So Trump got his one shot fired the guy or pushed him out, forced him to resign, then put in Halligan. You can't do that. Okay, that's not a Democratic or Republican, an independent. That's just what the law says. It's a basic law. You go to New Jersey, Alina Habba stayed there longer than 120 days. And you only get 120 days. Then the district court judges didn't extend Alina Habba's term. They fired her. So then they appointed the first assistant United States attorney and said, okay, well, you're now the interim. You're the new person. So Alina Habba then fired that person and then said, well, I took her job now. So I'm the interim because you appointed a new interim judges and I stole her job. And they're like, you can't do that. You had the chance. We didn't extend your term. And the Third Circuit rejected her. And here the district court judges in Virginia from all political parties are furious. They're like, get her out of here. She's a squatter. What the hell is she doing in here? And this is in addition to the reporting we were talking about last week when I had Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel and Talking Fed podcast talking about this. Let's bring in Harry Litman because this is an update to our reporting. Last week, the judges were fed up. Now they're just outright furious because Lindsey Halligan's name on these files, it's just, and I think the judges feel two things. One, that their courts are being so disrespected. Two of three things. Two, that they're worried that these other cases unrelated to the Comey and New York Attorney General, that these other cases are now being tainted and these criminal defendants have these avenues to appeal and to do these and get these dismissals. And then I think a lot of these judges have backgrounds with the DOJ or working at the DOJ, and they're seeing the fall of this once proud institution, and it's just an embarrassing humiliation stain. You worked at the DOJ. That's why your show's called Talking Feds. Feds, you're a federal prosecutor. You were the top federal prosecutor out of Pennsylvania's one of the districts there, and you were a top prosecutor out of Maine Justice. So make this make sense, Harry.
I can't make it make sense, but I can hopefully explain a little bit more why it doesn't make sense. First, everything you say on the law is right. And, it's labyrinthine, but we've known that before. There's a reason for it. And by the way, this incredible contempt and disparagement from Pam Bondi, she just doesn't know the Constitution, because here Congress has acted in addition to everything else where you say, of course, they want to protect their own ability and not have the presidency do end runs around it. It is right in the Constitution that Congress shall determine the process for appointing inferior officers, undisputed. That's what a U.S. attorney is. But you think about this hapless AUSA, it's kind of back to the March 15th Abrego Garcia times where they're just in there doing their own thing. And I think your analysis, Ben, is these first 2 points are spot on. Remember, it does fall to the court to decide who should be the U.S. attorney. It's not a political decision when the interim has run out until there's a confirmation. And it's not a political decision. They just want to put someone competent in. And the broadside from Bondi saying the court and magistrates there are insulting when really what they're saying is everything you say, everything Bondi says can just be summarized as the laws against us, but she can only view it through the prism of some kind of political attack from the judges. So they resent that for sure, but also they're the ones who are going to, at least in part, have to clean up the mess. We know that when you're not Halligan, it could as well be, I've been struggling for the best metaphor here, but she could be Mickey Mouse. She could be Benjamin Franklin. She's a pretend non-prosecutor, and she's not permitted, a pretend non-prosecutor who doesn't legitimately have the power of the United States, even to supervise a case. So every single one, it's as if she's recused. She is, in one of, I think the Third Circuit opinion about Habba puts it, a legal nullity. So every case that is brought, every indictment for every crime, and of course, they are simultaneously doing their bullshit political prosecutions, but also there's some pretty serious crimes in the District of New Jersey, the Eastern District of Virginia. And those are the very ones that, would normally be done in the name of public safety that they are jeopardizing. You're going to have defendants, without the slightest doubt, come in front of the Eastern District of Virginia and judges like Leonie Brinkema and say to her, you cannot, this wasn't a legit indictment, and it was maybe different when Halligan stumbled into it not knowing, but she knew about it and still went forward. Let me say a little bit more about this claim that OLC has blessed it. They have not. What has happened is the political officials at DOJ, like Todd Blanche, have just given a command from the White House. You keep calling her U.S. attorney. We know Haba has resigned and Halligan has been disqualified. You keep calling her U.S. attorney. We are told that at the same time, the Office of Legal Counsel is looking into this, but the claim that they're hoping OLC blesses, and, who knows if the OLC is the old OLC and does things with integrity, is, well, Judge Curry disqualified her, said she's a legal nullity, but she didn't exactly say leave office. So therefore, she can stay there. Think about that for half a second. It's so desperate, it's so contemptuous, and it is such a freight train leading to disaster. We have someone who is a legal nullity. The bottom of the opinion from Judge Curry didn't say leave office. So now she stays there, and a legal nullity oversees the indictments of serious criminals. You just can't do it. It's a violation of the Constitution. So I don't see, even if OLC does some kind of far-fetched opinion, well, you don't have to, so long as the direct command hasn't been made, that they could not possibly opine that that courts would be out of their authority in saying, as they got to, there's a problem with this indictment, that indictment, every single frigging indictment that now comes out of the EDVA, which I can remind you, or our listeners, Ben, you know it very well, has these really big defense and defense industry and really big, all kinds of cases. They're all being totally threatened. Now, we saw, it's interesting, there's a little bit of a schizophrenia here, even with churlish complain about activist judges. They saw the writing on the wall and stood down as to Haba. The exact same position, unless the Fourth Circuit over Curry gives some kind of stay, the state of the law is the exact thing. The risk they're taking is the exact risk that caused them to see reason in the Haba case and say, okay, we're resigning here now because it's going to be bedlam. You can't run an office with a legal nullity as U.S. attorney. That's precisely who Lindsey Halligan is. And as you point out, she's even less qualified than Alina Haba, less experienced, more problematic in every way. So the combination of contempt and really just complete implausible kind of reasoning. Well, they didn't say to remove her, so keep her in. They're going right into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour and doing it with total contempt. But it's a train wreck. And again, the train wreck is not just for the administration's political efforts to want to reward a political loyalist of Trump and indict a antagonist of Trump. It's the bread and butter cases that the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecutes every day in the protection of public safety, all of which they've jeopardized with a complete unreasonable caprice that I do not believe OLC could possibly bless.
I mean, just think about if you're at like a baseball game, and you're watching there, you're with your family, and there's a streaker who runs through the field, right? Who doesn't belong there.
It's going to be good how you're going to tie this together, Ben. I'm interested. Yeah.
Okay, maybe the first time the streaker's there, you're a little amused by it, and you're like, oh, okay, got it. But then when the streaker or the person charging the field starts disrupting the game, and then every time you just want to see the freaking game get played, the person just runs around, takes the pitcher's ball, starts taking the bases and throws the bases on the ground. And to avoid this, all that streaker or person would have to do is just stay in the audience and watch the game. Now, with Lindsey Halligan, after the order by Judge Curry disqualifying her and saying she's unlawful to be in this position, all the Department of Justice would literally have to do is essentially nothing and preserve the status quo before her, which is you just don't put her name on the pleadings and she doesn't show up to the office where she doesn't belong. And that's what existed before. The office would now have a first assistant who could run the office until that was figured out. It could function properly and they could handle the cases and there wouldn't be issues. But they insist on putting her name on all of the filings, and she refuses to walk out of the office where she doesn't belong, like the streaker in that example, and she's ruining the game. But in this case, we're not dealing with a baseball game where the stakes are who's going to win, the Dodgers or Toronto Blue Jays, which I know still have a lot of impact on people's lives. But the issue here is a drug trafficker going to be convicted, although Trump will probably pardon that trafficker anyway, or what's going to happen on this espionage case, and what's going to happen on this fraud case, or what's going to happen on this Ponzi scheme case or sex trafficking case. And the Department of Justice is out there having basically a streaker put their name attached to these things where they don't belong. And the courts are like, why are you doing? Stop it. Just take her name off the freaking document and tell her to go out of the office so we can actually handle business here and be like adults. And you've got Bondi and Todd Blanche like, poo-poo, and people like, dude, why are you and the judges are like, why are you behaving like this? And how is this the DOJ? Like, that's what's happening here. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah. So it is really true. They're being completely vindictive and wanting a political win. The law be damned. But 2 other points. There's a way to make Lindsey Halligan, the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Trump can nominate her, and the Senate, with its 53 Republicans, can confirm her. But no way that's happening here, because it's quite clear we have an incompetent, inexperienced person who should never be within a mile of the U.S. attorney's office, much less in the U.S. attorney's chair. And then second, here's what they've done with Alina Habba. They've understood that they're totally interfering with public safety, as you say. They've set her aside. They're giving her some bogus, landing pad kind of title. But they'll continue to fight it, is what they said. And if the Supreme Court holds that the Third Circuit was mistaken and Habba really should be, or it's her appointment is unproblematic, she'll come back and be put in this temporary way if the Supreme Court green lights it, the way they tried to do it while still bypassing congressional review. They could do the same with Halligan. What they're insisting on doing, and I think because it's become even more politically contentious than Habba, and it should be, because she's the one who's come in not only with zero, nothing from nothing leaves zero experience, but to get the scalps of political enemies. And she did it, I think, it would appear, we may not ever find out, in very improper ways. But they could now just tack toward the law as it's really clearly emerging. But instead, I think, as you say, neener, boo-boo, we're going to continue to call her the U.S. attorney. I think sort of Trump wants it. Law be damned. Public safety be damned. Poor prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia be damned. We don't care, because Trump likes this former insurance lawyer come beauty contestant. And screw the public safety. There's really no other way to rationalize this whole misadventure.
I always, you went to law school right around the same time I did, Harry. I'm joking. Mm-hmm. Harry went to law school a lot sooner than I did, a lot later than I did. earlier.
I'm older.
Oh,
Even though I look younger.
Harry's
I know.
older than me, even though he doesn't look like it, is what I'm trying to say.
Even though my hair is, but
it was. We're doing our best here. We're holding on for dear life here, Harry. And look, this experience of law, I never viewed it when I went to law school as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. Don't get me wrong. I had political views, and that may have pushed me to do some types of law over other types of law and feel certain ways about some cases versus others. But at the end of the day, when it came to what the Constitution said and who controlled the rules of the game, that was never really in dispute. And under the Trump regime, they're just taking a whack-a-mole to it, and they are destroying something that actually was the envy of the world a little bit. That was something our lawyers and judges would travel the world to show how our system worked. And now our system looks like, Russia, basically. So anyway, on that positive note, we'll hit subscribe to go to Harry's channel, Talking Feds on YouTube, Talking Feds Substack. Please check it out. Harry does a great job breaking it all down on YouTube. Just search Talking Feds. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ben.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.